وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to teach us that which we do not know, to benefit us what He has taught us, to make us from amongst His righteous servants, and to bless us with ikhlas. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless us with ikhlas. Those brothers who don't need the wall, move over here, inshallah. Because we require class participation. This is not a one-way street. We need some give and take. Okay. The title of this evening's lecture, inshallah ta'ala, is Common Mistakes that we make during the month of Ramadan. Common mistakes that we make during the month of Ramadan. And I think that I have a list of things that I'm going to go through, inshallah ta'ala. Not go into too much detail on any one particular topic, but something, inshallah, that will hopefully open up our minds about why we're fasting. And hopefully, if we have fallen into any of these things that are common mistakes, that we're able to correct them now. We're able to think about them and correct them now, so we don't make them during the month of Ramadan itself. Before we get into the actual topic, are any of you teachers, like you actually teach in a school or a university? Anybody? Nobody. Like, have all of you gone to school before at some point in your life? Sure? Going to school right now. Okay, excellent. I want you to think about this because it actually relates directly to our fast. Tahir, think about the different types of people who go to class. All right? Especially for those of you who used to teach, like Shaykh. You have some people who go to class and they sleep in class. Right? Have all of you seen that before? I'm not asking you, did you used to sleep in class? You can keep that to yourself. But you all know people who used to sleep in class. I just want to know, how much do you think they were learning while they were sleeping? Not too much. Okay, excellent. You have other people who go to class, but you can tell that they're going to class simply to get the class over with. In other words, they need to get a diploma for whatever reason, so they're going to class to get a diploma or to get a degree. Not really that they're there to learn. Right? You know those kind of people too. You have other people that know exactly what they want to be. I want to be a doctor. I want to be this. I want to be an engineer, or I want to be an attorney. And so they go to class, and especially those things that are directly related to what they want to study, they pay close attention to. They get good grades. They study those things even outside of class. Right? Following? Okay. We have the same categories of people who fast. You have some people who fast the month of Ramadan simply to get it over with. In other words, they just wanted to be said that they were fasting. He woke up after Fajr, before Fajr, maybe he ate sahur, maybe he didn't, slept for a lot of the day. At Maghrib time, he broke his fast. He says, I fasted today. In other words, he doesn't have to make the day up. Following? What type of reward is he getting from his fasting? Not too much of anything. He's like the guy who went to class and he slept. He slept in class. Could the teacher mark him absent? No, you can't do that, because if there was a crime, for example, if somebody accused that person of committing the crime, he would have to be able to come and say, no, I was present in class. I wasn't there. I was in class. He was asleep. He didn't get anything out of the class, but he still was present. And so this is how a lot of the Muslims are with Ramadan. Just fasting. I was present. I was there. I fasted. You get another type who they're looking for a little something. At least I want to get a diploma out of it. Say, I got to do the bare minimum so I can skate by. And so you have some Muslims that are like that with the month of Ramadan. So he's still going to do, he's going to pray on time, and he's going to do some of the minor things of the fast that's supposed to be done, and he's going to get a reward for that, but he's very different from the person that went into class knowing what they wanted out of that class. And so they got what they were looking for, and a lot of times a lot more. They were looking for a certain thing from this class, and so they got that. But subhanAllah, along the way, they even learned many more things that they never even thought that they were going to get out of that class. And that is the type of faster that we want to be. We want to go into Ramadan with certain goals. You accomplish those goals, Allah is going to give you even more than what you could ever imagine. But you have to go in knowing what you're looking for. So the first mistake that many people make during the month of Ramadan is that they go in goalless. They have no goal whatsoever that they are trying to achieve from their fast except for getting it over with. All they're thinking about is the Eid. Ramadan, Eid al-Fitr. Nah, we get to celebrate, kids get some toys, we go out, we see all the Muslims, and that is what Ramadan has become for too many people, and that's why you'll find them fasting during the day, sinning during the night. Because that fast had no effect on them. It didn't change their course of behavior. So how can a Muslim fast during the day, and then you get questions, is his fast still valid? He went to a club at night. La ilaha illallah. But this is the reality of some Muslims who only look at fasting as something to get over with. All right? So that is the first thing that we have to look at when we talk about the mistakes of those or common errors that are made during the month of Ramadan, is that we go into the month of Ramadan without goals. Right? That brings up a natural question, which is what?
What goals you should try to achieve?
There you go. What should we be shooting for in Ramadan? What should our goals be in the month of Ramadan? Anybody have any insight on it? Yes. To fast. Okay. We got past that. Next. Yes.
Maybe pray every night so you might catch Laylatul Qadr.
Praying every night so you can catch Laylatul Qadr. That's a good goal. Yes. La'allakum tattaqun. What's that mean? Nobody else speaks Arabic. No.
Strive best to fear Allah.
Okay. So give me a little more than that. Striving to fear Allah. Striving to have taqwa. Why? Why are we trying to what are we looking for?
To get
Change,
to Allah.
to be better.
To change, to be better, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us why He prescribed the fasting. Same way He told us why He prescribed salah. He told Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, وَأَقِمَ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِي. Establish the salah for my remembrance. If your salah is not reminding you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, you have a certain pattern that you're going on. You're working. You start your day at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, but then Dhuhr comes. And now you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There was something that happened between Fajr and Dhuhr that wasn't pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or something that you could have done better. At Dhuhr time, now you come, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're able to recalibrate. You're able to get back on track. This is actually what Salat is about. To remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. And Salat prohibits you from, or prohibits from evil and obscenities or shameful deeds. Right? So if the Salat is not doing that for you, then you need to go back and look at what's wrong with my Salat. It could start with your tahara. It could be a number of things. The point is, your fast as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us why He prescribed the fast. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you can achieve taqwa. Okay. That requires, so if that is one of our goals during the month of Ramadan, that we want to attain taqwa, then it is very, very important for us to know the characteristics of the who have taqwa. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has detailed that in the Quran, and I've spoken about that on a number of occasions. But just as a reminder, let us right now just mention, without going through a bunch of ayat, because it's all in the Quran. All of these, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the muttaqeen in the Quran in detail. So if we can just recall some of those, then we'll be able to put those as goals for ourselves for the month of Ramadan. Tahir, who remembers some of them? Who knows some of them? Yes. Sorry? Okay, so that was from the khutbah. Those who pardon people. They pardon people. If somebody's done you wrong, you excuse them for that. That is one of the characteristics of the people of taqwa. Yes. They spend from that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them. In other words, if you don't pardon people, then that shows a deficiency in taqwa. If you don't spend for this deen, if you don't spend on those things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated for you to spend upon, your spouses, your children, your zakat, helping to establish the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this land, where there is no other way to do it except from our pockets. We don't have any system established. If you don't do that, then that shows that there's a deficiency in taqwa, which means that you are trying to use the month of Ramadan to change that particular habit. You know you're stingy. You know you're a spendthrift. You're tight-fisted. You know this about yourself. Then during the month of Ramadan, you try to establish a different habit. But again, your goals, and we got to talk about that next, because a lot of people have goals during the month of Ramadan. They have no plan for accomplishing those goals, which we'll talk about next. All right? So, what else? Yes. يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. They believe in the unseen. They believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They believe in His qadr. They believe in the angels. They believe in the last day. And as Muslims, this is something that's an obligation upon us. So we may come and say, well, that's not going to change in Ramadan. No, it can. It can. Because the more you read the Quran, the more your faith grows in those things. Your faith grows in the hereafter. The Prophet ﷺ was Edward the Next. He was the most generous of all the people. But during the month of Ramadan, he was even more generous. Why? In the same hadith, we're told why. Because Jibril used to come to him and they would study the Quran, not just read the Quran. I think that's important for us to recognize as well. It wasn't just that they would read the Quran, which is where a lot of us get that, we should be reading 1 juz a day in Ramadan, because that's what the Prophet ﷺ used to do with Jibril. No. The Prophet ﷺ outside of Ramadan, you need to understand this. The Prophet ﷺ outside of Ramadan stood in 1 rak'ah with Hudayfa to his side and prayed what? Al-Baqarah. And then Nisa. And then went back and read Ali Imran. 6 juz in 1 rak'ah. Not in Ramadan. Do you think that the Prophet ﷺ was reading 1 juz a day in Ramadan? Honestly, I mean, that's not really something that... The point is what? That what the Prophet ﷺ was doing with Jibril, Darisuhu al-Quran. There was a study of the Quran going on, which shows that it's not simply during the month of Ramadan that we just read the Quran. We should be studying the Quran. When you read the Quran, you should be reading for reflection. You should be trying to understand what you're reading from the Quran. So, belief in the unseen. As you read the Quran, you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala focuses on that throughout the Quran, and your iman grows in the unseen. What else from the characteristics of the muttaqeen? Yes. Those who repress their anger. Okay, so not just that for them, that anger management is part of who they are. They manage their anger all the time. So when something happens, they're able to not necessarily control the feeling, because that's another level. You see certain things that really upset you. How you respond is what shows what your level of taqwa is. Like, what else? Husnul khuluq. Okay, so having good character, which is also spelled out in certain places in the Quran, right? Yes. Again? I understand. Okay, fraud. Okay, so avoiding fraud. In other words, that a person is honest in his business dealings, and that is without a doubt, from the characteristics of the people of Taqwa, because from their characteristics is that they are sadiqeen. The Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the ayah Imran that from the characteristics of the people of Taqwa is that they are truthful. They're truthful not only in speech but in their actions as well. These are all part of characteristics of the muttaqin. I'm not going to go into a detailed account of that because it's been dealt with on other occasions. But the point is this: that you have to have some goals that you set for yourself during the month of Ramadan. And if you set those goals around attaining taqwa, then that is the highest objective of the month of Ramadan in terms of your pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All right? So if you set your goals around that and you look, where are my shortcomings? I get angry quickly. Not with the brothers, but at home. Children get me upset. Wife drives me crazy. As soon as she says this, you turn, your temper is like a firecracker. All about this short. As soon as it gets lit, it blows. Right? So you have to take some time to take account of yourself. That's important before the month of Ramadan, which is why I was talking about the khutbah on Friday, is that you start looking at, okay, I need to take a step back, look at my obligations. And when we talk about taking account of yourself, I want you to look at these 4 things. You ready? Don't forget them, inshallah. I'm going to ask you at the end, and if you're not able to answer them, then you fail the class. Like, the first is that you look at the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated upon you. That's your first thing that you look at. What has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala obligated upon you? Starting with your salat, you look at your zakat, to the end of it. Your kindness and your dutifulness to your parents. All of those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has obligated to himself and to the creation. And look at where you stand in those things. That's number 1. You got it? Like, number 2, look at the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited that you still do. Okay? That's number 2. So, you can start by looking at the actions of the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden suspicion. Are you suspicious of other Muslims? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited that we fear other than Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do we fear the people like we fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Atakshan nas, Allahu haqqu atakshan. Are you fearing the people? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has more of a right to be feared. So do you leave off certain obligations that you owe to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you fear what people are going to say about it? And if that is the case, then you have to work on that. You have to get that out. The point is, you look at your actions of the heart. Do you love something as much as you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? To the point that you will put their love over what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. And we have to really ask ourselves, because when you look back and you look at why do I do the things that are displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just that you recognize that you've done them, but you ask yourself, why do I do them? The majority of the time is going back to something in the heart. It's because you love something more than you love Allah. And so you sacrifice what is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that you can get whatever it is that you love more than Him. So you start with your heart. Then you start looking at the actions of the limbs, your eyes and your ears. What are you listening to? Do you allow people to backbite when you're around? Gossip. Say things that they should not say around you. And you just sit there and you don't respond. Do you look at things that you should not be looking at? Internet, television, whatever it might be. You understand? And you go down a list and you look at, am I disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and why? Right. The third thing that you look at is your time. How are you spending your time? So you start with your obligations, and then you go on to the prohibitions, and then you go on to your time. Think about how you spent your time. If you do it at the end of the night, for example, you just do what is known as self-examination, and you take that time at the end of the night. How did I spend my time today? Was it in the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or was there, in fact, quite a bit of my time that I used in a way that is not going to bring me benefit on Yawm al-Qiyamah? You know, as Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala said, Ya ibn Adam, innama anta ayyam. Oh, son of Adam, you're nothing but days. إِذَا ذَهَبَ يَوْمٌ ذَهَبَ بَعْضُ. When a day goes away, part of you has gone. Is this something you can get back? So, you know, we have to be very cautious with our time. The fourth and final thing, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, is to examine the things that you have done, and this is another level of examination. And you're going to look at the first three before you get to the level of looking at number 4. To look at the things that you have done that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Could you be doing something that is more pleasing to Allah? And this is from the tricks of Shaytan, as both Ibn al-Jawzi and Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, have mentioned, is that when a person gets to a certain level where they have left off their disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning any form of open disobedience to Allah, they fulfill their fara'id, is that they become busy with things that are good, but then they leave off that which is better. And that's another level of self-examination that comes over time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was best. Like
An example.
Sorry?
Like an example.
An example of that is a person who may read a book. For example, he may sit in the masjid and he reads a book. And a book is something that is deen. For example, he's reading a fiqh book. At the same time, he is somebody who has the ability to call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the other people in his area are not giving down. So instead of sitting in the masjid and reading a book about fiqh, he really should be out and about calling the people to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You understand? So instead of using his time like that, he uses if you just look at in a day, and there's a lot of that happens. So, for example, a person is driving in his car. Okay? He's listening to KYW. Permissible. Right? Or, let's just say he's actually doing something that is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like listening to a lecture. Right? But it might be better for him at that particular time to be reciting the Quran. So, you understand what I'm saying? So these are things that, again, it's another level that a person gets to, where they try to spend their time, all of it, in the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the things that falls under this category, and this is a better example in my humble estimation, is that you look at the things that you do that are permissible. How can you turn them into ibadah? So, for example, a person looks at, he says, SubhanAllah, last night when I went to sleep, I just went to sleep because I was tired. Tonight when I go to sleep, I need to go to sleep because I want to wake up and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You understand the difference? So he's turning his acts that are permissible, he's turning them into ibadah simply through intention. Simply through his intention. So, when you look at the first, I don't know how long, when did I start talking?
Not too long.
22 minutes ago.
22 minutes, exactly. So when you look at the first common mistake that people make in the month of Ramadan is that they enter without any goals. We should make our goals centered around taqwa. taqwa, and the sifat, or the characteristics of the people of taqwa, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran. The second, the second common error is that there are people who have goals but have no plan to accomplish their goals. Okay, so the brother here mentioned, for example, I'm going to pray Tarawih every night. I'm going to pray Tarawih every night. Like, that's a great goal, correct? And inshallah, as a matter of fact, from the characteristics of the people of taqwa is what? Is that they pray at night. كَانُوا قَلِيلًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ مَا يَهْجَعُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, talking about the people of taqwa, at night they used to sleep very little. They would lay down very little at night. كَانُوا قَلِيلًا مِنَ اللَّيْلِ مَا يَهْجَعُونَ وَبِالْأَسْحَارِ هُمْ يَسْتَغْفِرُونَ. And in the ashab, waqt as-sahar, the time right before Fajr, 45 minutes or an hour before Fajr, they are seeking the forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is from the characteristics of the people of taqwa. Right. So you say to yourself, I'm going to pray Tarawih every night in the month of Ramadan. Like, do you work? No, do you work or not? No, you work. Excellent. Time do you have to get up for work?
Right after Fajr.
Huh?
Right after Fajr.
Right after Fajr. Well, you know, how does that work? If you're up before Fajr for Sahur, and then you pray Fajr, then you're not going back to sleep, is what you're saying.
You're not really getting too
Nah, you're not really getting too much.
No.
Okay. That means that if you're going to pray Tarawih every night, as normal human beings, you're going to have to get some sleep during the daytime, at some point during the day. Otherwise, you're going to be burnt out after 3 nights. No, really. That's what's going to happen. And you're just going to be like, I'm not praying tonight. SubhanAllah. How do you build? You're not going to be able to build that consistency. So you now have to think today, as in May 6th, you have to sit back and you have to say, all right, where am I going to pray? How long does it take to get there? You have to think about these things. You know, unless you live right next to the masjid, then that's another story. But if it's a 10 to 15 minute drive, you need to consider that. What time are you going to get home from Tarawih? Okay, I'm getting home from Tarawih at midnight, 11:30, midnight. I need to be up by 3:15 so that I can have Sahur. Think about these things beforehand, because if you fail to plan, then you what? And you plan to fail. That's true. So you have to plan those things out if, in fact, that's one of your goals. And it should be one of your goals. One of your goals should be to pray Tarawih every single night in the masjid. Okay. Some people might say, for me, realistically, my wajib, my obligation is to take care of my family. And I can't do that every night. It's just not possible for me to do that every night. Alhamdulillah, you figure that out now. Because now you can plan. Okay, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, I can do it. The other days I'm not going to be able, because okay, that's good. But that doesn't mean you stop praying at night. It just means you stop praying Tarawih. So now you can plan to pray those other nights in your home. But you have to think about that early in the game. What are some other goals that we should have for ourselves? Like practical things that you're going to do during the month of Ramadan. Yes.
Educating your family.
Okay, teaching your family. Like, man, when? See? That's planning to fail. A suitable time. Once Ramadan starts and things are moving and I'm working and she's working, she got to take care of the kids. The kids are acting up today. This one, I got to go down to the school. There's no suitable time. There's only suitable time that you cut out and you make that time,
make it suitable.
Make it suitable. you make it impenetrable. Right? That time can't be touched. Like, what else? Yes.
My question is...
No questions. No
My
questions.
plan is
After questions. After, yeah.
my plan, inshallah, is to take the example of the Prophet ﷺ, be more generous try my best to be more generous
Excellent.
and more giving.
No, excellent. That's a good thing. So the brother says, I want to be more generous during the month of Ramadan. Like, do this for me right now. Show me generous. Pull it out your pocket. No, you can't. No. You can pull money out your pocket. The money is not generous, especially if you have $1,000 and you pull out $1. That's not generous. That's a show. Like, what does that mean to be generous? See, this is important that we look at that, because, and I'm going to put in another error into this one. So we're going to be 2 and 3 together. Is that many people don't use Ramadan as a time to build consistency of worship. So one of the goals of Ramadan is that you build consistency in your worship. If you go in Ramadan without that intention, then that is also an error. It's also an error. So you're going to do things in Ramadan that you don't do outside of Ramadan. There's no doubt about that. But one of your objectives has to be to create a form of change. So let's look at what Idris just mentioned when we say the issue of generosity. Like, I want to give away, for example, $500 during the month of Ramadan. Okay. But I'm going to make the bulk of that be in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. So, in the first 20 nights of Ramadan, the first 20 days, I'm going to give away $10 a day. Every day, I'm just going to give $10, either to the masjid, or I see somebody that's in need, or I know somebody, whatever, has a situation. I'm going to give $10 every day. You know what happens when you develop that habit of giving every day? That sticks with you. All right, now, after Ramadan, you might not be giving $10 every day. Maybe $2. Now, let me tell you something. I want you to think about this. On average, Shaykh Noor, would you say 100 people come to this masjid on a daily basis at least? I mean, you have Fajr, Dora. I'm talking about unique individuals, right? So, if every one of those unique individuals, 100, gave $2 a day to the masjid, how much would that be? How much would that be? This is not $200 a day times 365 days a year. Where are we at? $73,000. $73,000 just by giving what? $2 a day every time you go to the masjid.
Yes, we're going to make it mandatory.
We're going to make it mandatory. $2 entrance fee. That's the first time you did that math. No, but I just want us to realize the virtue of consistency. SubhanAllah. That just that. Now you again, and that's not hurting anybody. It's not hurting anybody to give $2 a day to the masjid. And if the people who came to the masjid did that, then we have some significant income for our masjid. Let's backtrack for a second. So, this is giving $10 a day for the first 20 days. We're at 200, right? The last 10 nights, he gives $30 a night. Because he's looking for Laylatul Qadr. And he's saying, inshallah, no matter what, I'm going to at least have that on my scale. Which that 30 is multiplied 10 to 700 times. And then multiply that more than 1,000 months, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses me with that. It's like I've given millions just from $30, right? But more important than that is that he's established the habit of giving. When you establish that habit of taking something out that you love, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described us in the Quran, and He knows us better. We love that money. We love what we have in our pockets. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us about in the Quran, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You are not going to attain piety and bir and taqwa if they are mentioned independent of one another, then they encompass the other in the Quran. So you will not attain taqwa until you give that which you love. You love the money, you have to give it away to attain taqwa. It's that simple. So you want to become more generous in the month of Ramadan, you have to think about how that's going to go down. You can't just say, I want to be more generous. That's not a tangible thing. But you can say, I'm going to give away $10 at least. And you might come across situations you're like, nah, that deserves more than that. I'm giving away more than that. You know? But again, you've established the habit. The same thing with the prayer, with Tarawih. You establish that habit. Again, you might really look back and you say, you know what? This just does not look feasible. But you go in the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up doors for you. And you say, you know what? I feel stronger than I thought I was going to feel. And I figured this thing out. Alhamdulillah, you start praying. You might have been on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and Saturday type. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens those doors for you and gives you that strength. But even if He doesn't, and you start establishing the prayer in your home, on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Sundays. After Ramadan, why would you stop? Now, you might not do it at the same level. So you're not going to be praying like you would with Tarawih an hour a night or whatever it is. You might scale that down to 20 minutes to 30 minutes, but you still develop a consistency. And this is how Ramadan changes people. Like, what are some other goals? We talked about Salah. We talked about giving and charity. I really want, this part for me is the most important. The other things, the mistakes that are made and those type of things, we can overcome those things with a bit of education. But this needs some back and forth.
Patience, like you said, character. If you're a person that was short with your family, maybe you can work on that.
Okay. Excellent. So you want to work on certain character traits. Okay. That every individual needs to go back, honestly. And we need to do some self-examination, and we need to say, you know what? Okay, this part right now, you start with a Prophet ﷺ started. من لم يدع قول الزور والعمل به والجهل فليس لله حاجة أن يترك صيامه أن يترك طعامه وشرابه. Whoever doesn't leave off false speech, whoever doesn't leave off falsehood, and acting according to falsehood, acting falsely, if you will, and insincerity, acting with a lack of sincerity and a lack of truthfulness, and behaving ignorantly. Now, Allah has no need for him to leave off his food and his drink. So we start right there with our tongues. And this is critical. Lying, backbiting, slander, cursing, vulgar speech in general, anything that you know is displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what happens, and this is why it is critical to have this goal going into Ramadan, is that you really control your tongue. Most of the other things that come are a result of the tongue. You understand? So even your lack of patience, how is that displayed?
Through your tongue.
Through your tongue. It's displayed through your tongue. And in general, once you go there, the person is going to respond in kind, and then there's no telling what limit is going to do. So if you can control your tongue from the door, then what happens? The whole situation is it's changed. It's done. And that's why even if somebody insults you, what do you respond with when you're fasting? Fasting. Fasting. So again, it is controlling the tongue. And subhanAllah, there's no better time to do that than when you're fasting. When you feel that inside you, that those little, especially towards the end of the day, you're tired, you feel those little, those hunger pains coming on, and you're ready. That it's a good time to just, alhamdulillah, fasting in general helps you to be more relaxed. Not lazy, but calm. Not lazy, but calm. Like, what other goals? Memorizing the Quran, reading the Quran, reflecting over the Quran. Reflecting requires understanding. And so one of the goals that I really have for myself, and I recommend it as a goal for all of you, is to try to get through as much tafsir as possible. To take one tafsir, tafsir al-Kathir, the one that's translated into English, is 10 volumes. It's quite long. And a lot of what you're going to read in tafsir al-Kathir, even in the abridged version, may not be exactly what you need during the month of Ramadan. I would recommend tafsir al-Shaykh, the one that's translated, and at least half of the Quran is done.
I think it only goes up to 11, right?
La, it goes up to Isra.
Yeah, I must.
From Baqarah to Isra, which is half the Quran, just about, almost half the Quran, and then the last 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's definitely enough for you to chew on. All right. Yes. I said a city, but everybody says Sa'd.
How you pronounce it?
Sit.
According to yes, a city. And some say Sa'd. No problem. Like, so again, with the Quran, with the Quran, you can't stop at saying, yeah, I'm going to read tafsir. You really need to say when you are going to do it. Look, at the end of the day, there's 24 hours in a day. You need to look at what hour you're going to set aside for reading tafsir. Period. It's not rocket science. You can't wait until the month of Ramadan. Let me see how this kind of works. No, set aside a time now. If that doesn't work, if down the line you say, you know what? No, that time is going to be better spent doing this. At least you allocated time for that. If you don't, then trust me, it's going to be very difficult for you to accomplish that goal. You have to set aside times for things. It's interesting. I had no intention of saying this, but just looking at Shaykh Anwar here. We sat down the other day and we just kind of looked at how Ramadan plays out in Medina. What are you doing? If you want to pray Tarawih in the Haram, how much time that's going to take? How much time does it take to get from the Prophet's Masjid back to your house? How much time does it take traveling there? Because those are things that you have to take into consideration. And if you don't, you're fooling yourself if you think that you're going to be able to accomplish whatever goals that you have. If you never even put into consideration how much time it's going to take and when you're going to do those things. Especially? Oh, come on, man. Like, so when you look at the time of memorizing Quran, I think that's a great goal. I think that's a great goal because you can set aside some time to memorize the Quran, to read the Quran on a daily basis. And as I mentioned yesterday, the goal of trying to read a juz of Quran in a day, to me, that's because people have given themselves, they sold themselves short. Let's just put it like that. That if you push yourself and you start from now and you start seeing how much time does it take me to read a half a juz, and then let me double that, and now I can read a juz. And then you get to the point where Ramadan starts and you're reading 2 juz a day because you figured out how much time it takes you and where you can put that in, how you can allocate that time, so that you have higher aspirations. A lot of people have gone with the idea of reading a juz a day because of the hadith of Jibril, where he came and studied the Quran with the Prophet ﷺ in the month of Ramadan. So he was doing a juz a day with the Prophet ﷺ, not reading, but what? Studying, which is different. And so when we put ourselves to that goal, like many brothers mentioned, it takes them 20 minutes to read a juz, or 30 minutes to read a juz, or 40 minutes, for example. We can cut out, in the month of Ramadan, we can cut out more time than that to dedicate to the Quran. What else? Charity, making extra prayers. Making extra prayers in general, I think that is important. Not just the Tarawih, but incorporating, making sure that you're praying 2 rakats before Fajr, and the other, what are known as Sunan al-Rawatib, those Sunan that are before and after some of the obligatory prayers. You talked about character issues. So the tongue, curbing that negative behavior in general is also important, and these are habits that you want to continue after the month of Ramadan. Like, okay, I'm going to tell you those three. What were they, real quick? The first three common errors.
Obligation.
Obligation. Allah has prohibited.
Whatever.
Some of the things you said.
The things that you're obligated to.
You said four things. You talking about the four things?
Those are when you take account of yourself.
Oh, that's right.
Self-examination.
That's different.
You look at four things. I just mentioned three. Okay, right. Going into Ramadan without goals. That's a very common error, and we need to be aware of that. Tahir. Second thing.
Planning your goal.
How are you gonna reach this goal?
Tahir. Exactly. Right. So, not having a plan to accomplish those goals. And the third thing is the issue of consistency. Not having the aspiration of consistency. In other words, you don't even have any goal of being consistent in this thing, which is an error. You should be using the goals that you have for yourself to develop a pattern of consistency, after the month of Ramadan, even if it's not at the same level. So your generosity outside of Ramadan is not going to be like it is in Ramadan, but you're not going to be stingy. So you might go from $10 a day to $2 a day, but you're still doing something daily. That if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls you back in that day, it was a day in which you gave charity. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls you back during that day, it was after a night in which you prayed. You understand? Developing that aspect of consistency. All right. I'm going to go through these things rather quickly. The remainder of the common errors that I recognize a lot of time many people make during the month of Ramadan. The first, number 4, this is number 4, is that not taking advantage of the last 10 nights of Ramadan. And what I mean by that is that many people start off Ramadan with this type of enthusiasm. And they go for it. And they give it their all on the first time around the track. On that last lap, they have no gas left. And subhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jalla, out of His infinite hikmah, has not made Laylatul Qadr be in the first 10 nights of Ramadan or the middle 10 nights. Laylatul Qadr is in the last 10 nights. And as with everything else, the practice is longer than the game. Like with everything else, like with any other thing. You look at the Olympians. They might be in the, one race, is 40 seconds. They've been practicing 4 years for a 40-second race, right? Allah Azza wa Jalla gives us the first 20 days to prepare for the last 10. It is really Ramadan, really, besides the aspect of fasting. It really is about Laylatul Qadr. And if you miss Laylatul Qadr, that's a lot of idea. If you miss Laylatul Qadr, then you have missed the greatest night of the year. All of the standing you did during the first 20 nights doesn't compare a fraction to standing on Laylatul Qadr. So what Allah is allowing us to do is develop a solid routine during those first 10. During the first 20. So don't burn yourself out. Recognize the virtue of Laylatul Qadr. Recognize the virtue of seeking out Laylatul Qadr. Which also is why the Prophet ﷺ did what during the last 10 nights of Ramadan? He made i'tikaf. And many Muslims have left that sunnah of i'tikaf. Even if you can't do it every night during the last 10 nights. Even if you can only do it during the night. In other words, you go into the masjid before Maghrib and you don't leave until after Fajr. That still counts as i'tikaf if that is your intention. And I'm not saying that that's the way you should do it. You should try to do it as long as you can. But the point is that at least try to do it at some point. And that's sunnah i'tikaf is important. And the reason why, and I really want you to consider this, is that many of us only find the sweetness of ibadah when we're with a group of people. And that's problematic. Because you're not standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a group of people. And you're not going into your grave with a group of people. And if you don't get used to finding solace with your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life alone, then there's a very strong chance that you won't find that solace in the hereafter. Mm-hmm. And we have to look at, in this life, taking advantage of those times of khalwa, that you are alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what i'tikaf is about. And that's another problem, another common error, is that people make i'tikaf as if it's some kind of social gathering. You know, so we get together. Going, no, i'tikaf, leave the man alone. Let him be. Let him read the Quran. Let him cry to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let him make dua. And if you don't know how to make dua, some people just say, I don't even know what to say. Just raise your hands and tell Allah, oh Allah, I don't even know how to worship you properly. Guide me to worship you properly. Guide me to saying what I need to say to earn your pleasure and doing what I need to do to earn your pleasure. Allah's not going to turn you away. But push yourself to find comfort in that solitude, yes, in that solitude, and being alone, just you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very important that we do that, and there's no other ibadah like i'tikaf when it comes to that. Along with standing at night. Tahir. So that was like error number 4 and number 5 mixed in with it. But the issue of a lack of preparation for the last 10 nights. So the same way that you prepare for Ramadan, look at the last 10 nights. Like, I'm going to ask you right now, what are the last 10 nights on the calendar, on the Gregorian calendar? Are they in May or June?
June.
In June. From what to what? Right. So,
6th to 15th.
The 6th through the 15th, except that the 15th is probably going to be the law. But anyway,
5th, 14th, 16th.
Okay. The point is alhamdulillah, which is that we should know that from now, if this is the calendar that we normally operate on. Because it's the calendar that you operate on when it comes to your children's school. It's the calendar that you operate on when it comes to work. And you may want to, from now, plan to miss some days of work. Just let them know. I need to take off June, whatever, 11th, because that's probably the 27th night preceding it, for Long Island, the 12th or whatever. You understand? But if you plan in advance, then you can have all of that set up. And if you work for yourself, then you can put certain things in place so that you can take advantage of those nights. Proper preparation for the last 10 nights. Realizing what Laylatul Qadr really means. Laylatul Qadri khayrun min alfi shahr. It is superior. The Laylatul Qadr is superior to 1,000 months of worship in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now,
Most people take the 27th as the day, and they plan for it.
That is another common mistake. Is that belief that the 27th night is Laylatul Qadr. And a lot of years, the 27th is Laylatul Qadr. Wallahu a'lam. The signs indicate that. But that's not necessarily the case every year. Laylatul Qadr can be the 23rd night. It can be the 24th night. But that's another story.
Can it be before the 10th, last 10
No,
days?
it's in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Laylatul Qadr is in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Without a doubt. Another thing about the last 10 nights. And this is common error number 6 or whatever. Having iftars at your house in the last 10 nights of Ramadan is totally not recommended. All right? And the reason why is because of what happens, of what our idea of an iftar is. Okay, what happens during the iftar?
You got a bunch of people at your house.
Okay, you bring a bunch of people over to the house. Okay. Problem number 1. What happens when a bunch of old buddies get together?
Talking about everything except remembering Allah
Talk-
subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Talking about everything except for the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Talking about old times, talking about this, talking about that. Talking.
Possibly missing the Salat and Jama'at.
Tell you, you're most likely not going to pray Maghrib at the masjid, which means that you're missing some reward of praying at the masjid, which is not necessarily haram. That depends on a number of factors. Tell you. But then what happens? You get full and fat and go to sleep. Tell you, overeating is another common error in the month of Ramadan. Believe it or not, it's Ramadan and we still overeat. But no, a lot of times it's not just that you're talking; it's that you talk all the way up until Isha time, and that's very common during the iftars. And then you're like, "Oh, brother, we gotta get out of here. We need to get the salat." And then what happens? You get the salat late. Imagine that's Laylatul Qadr. Every second is priceless. Every second. I remember, and this is the first time I had experienced it. There's a brother visiting from here, from Philly, in Medina. And Shaykh and Wyatt invited us over to his house for iftar. It was the 27th night. Okay? So, as we're breaking the fast, I mean, because they break fast as a family, it was just myself and his other brother from Philly. As they're breaking the fast, they got Masana, reading the Quran. I'm looking like, this is not right. But they were trying, they did not want to waste 1 second. And breaking fast in Muslim countries is a little different than the way we do it here. There's no macaroni and cheese. No, there's dates, there's some water, and there's something to get you through. There's something to get you through. Yogurt and bread and like this. And then you go to the masjid and you pray Maghrib at the masjid. And then after that, you may come back and eat a little more, but even then, it was just dhikr the whole time. And it was just like, that was a lesson to say that these moments are priceless. You don't want to do that with people that don't value those moments. And so forget those iftars in the last 10 nights. Forget them. Because it turns into a waste of your time. And you don't have time to waste in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. That is the wrong time not to use your time wisely. And so you need to prepare in advance. Not to mention the issue of overeating, which generally causes you to be lazy in worship. And so it's critical. I would recommend from now that if you were planning an iftar, that it not be during the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Like, error number whatever now. We're just going
I think we're on 7 now.
Eating after the adhan of Fajr. And this requires some detail, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَكُمُ الْخَيْطُ الْأَبْيَضُ مِنَ الْخَيْطِ الْأَسْوَدِ مِنَ الْفَجْرِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala laid out for us in the Quran when you start your fast and when you break your fast. He says, and eat and drink until the white thread becomes clear from the dark thread, meaning the day becomes clear from the night. And once you know that Fajr has entered, then it is impermissible for you to eat at that point. Now, Anas ibn Malik, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, asked another companion, his name was Zayd ibn Thabit. He's the one he was known as Kanzul Wahi. He used to write down the revelation. And he write down the Quran as it was being recited, as it was revealed to the Prophet. And he had support with the Prophet. And Anas ibn Malik said, how much time was between the suhoor and the adhan of Fajr? Okay? How much time was between the time you all finished eating suhoor and the adhan of Fajr was called? Zayd ibn Thabit said, Qadr 50 ayah. The time it takes to read 50 ayahs. Now, that's interesting in and of itself, to show that their relationship with the Quran was such that they used to measure time based on the Quran. And so if he said, Qadr 50 ayah, that automatically, like we sit back and say, well, what's that?
Was they short, long?
Start going to how long? Let me find a surah that's 50 ayahs and try to figure out how long it takes for them. That meant something, which shows their relationship with the Quran. It's critical to understand. All right? So he said, Qadr 50 ayah, the time that it would take you to read 50 ayahs. Hafiz ibn Hajar, rahimahullah ta'ala, says the explanation of hadith doesn't vary. He says that that's approximately 4 to 6 minutes. 4 to 6 minutes. Okay? So, the time between stopping your suhoor and the adhan of Fajr is around there. If you want to do as the Prophet ﷺ did. That was his sunnah. At least at that particular occasion. Like, some people say, no, you're supposed to eat all the way up till they call the adhan. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, eat and drink until you hear the adhan of Ibn Ummi Maktoum. Right? Like, was that a command?
No.
Or was that letting you know that it's permissible? No doubt that is not a command. The Prophet said something, I'm not trying to go into a whole bunch of usul fiqh and these type of things like that. But anytime a verb is a command, and it comes after a prohibition or a presumed prohibition, then the Prophet is letting us know that this thing is permissible, not that you have to do it. So similarly, in Surah Al-Jumu'ah, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, فَإِذَا قُضِيَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَانْتَشِرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when salat is over, then go out into the land. وَابْتَغُوا مَا كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. وَابْتَغُوا مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ. There's another ayah related to fasting. It's quite simple. And go out and seek Allah's provisions and His bounties. So does that mean, that's a command, right? It is a command.
No.
Does that mean that right after Salat al-Jum'ah, you can't sit and do dhikr and read Quran? No, you got to go out and do business? You have to? Nah. Why is the verb in the command form? Because prior to that, it is impermissible for you to buy and sell once the adhan for Jumu'ah is called. So now the command comes to let us know that it is permissible. Similarly here, the Prophet ﷺ is saying that Bilal calls the adhan at night. I mean, it's still not Fajr time yet. So you can eat and drink, basically what he's saying. You can eat and drink all the way until Ibn Maktoum calls the adhan. At that point, you have to stop. Okay. There's one exception today. What is that exception? The Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith of Abu Hurairah said that the Prophet ﷺ said that سَمِعَ أَحَدُكُمُ النِّدَاءَ وَالْإِنَاءُ عَلَى يَدِهِ. If one of you hears the adhan, and he has a utensil in his hand, فَلَا يَضَعْهُ حَتَّى يَقْضِيَ حَاجَتَهُ مِنْهُ, then he does not put it down until he feels his need from it. That is the exception. Now, what some people do, and this is a huge mistake, is they fill a plate, 5 courses, all on one plate, and they pick it up in their hand. Wallahi, pick it up in their hand. The time for Fajr comes, he says, it's still in my hand. Alright? That is not what the hadith is saying. is basically saying, because now that's premeditated eating. Right? You are planning to eat after the adhan of Fajr. No, this is a scenario where you have it in your hand and the adhan is being called. The adhan is called, and you already have this cup in your hand. You go ahead and you finish it. That's what the Prophet is saying. Not that you looking like, so 2 minutes left. Let me fill this plate up. Right? Fill the plate up with food. Hold it in my hand. As long as it's in my hand, the Prophet said, don't put it down until you fulfilled your need from it. I'm not done yet. Wasting food is haram. Right? No, I mean, we get all types. We get real filthy when it's something that benefits us. We become fuqaha. You know? Right. So this is a mistake, but some people do it. Some people believe it's okay to keep. I've seen overseas. This is super common.
Wow.
When the adhan is being called, they go get a drink of Zamzam. I don't know. Maybe one of their sheikhs gave my hadith or something, but that's just in any event. Stop eating before Fajr. Stop eating before Fajr. The Prophet ﷺ stopped approximately 5 minutes. And it doesn't mean that you have to stop then. Okay? You can go all the way up until the end, but don't eat after the adhan is called at the time when Fajr is coming. Where are we at, Sheikh?
Not enough.
Keep going. All right. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. Mistakes and errors related to women who are pregnant or breastfeeding. There is, especially in this city, there is the idea that if a woman is breastfeeding or pregnant, that not only doesn't she have to fast, but she doesn't have to make up her fast. In other words, all she has to do is feed a poor person after the month of Ramadan is over. And she has to feed 34, or 29, depending on how many days she missed for the month of Ramadan. And though this is attributed to Abdullah ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Umar, though this is attributed to them, that being attributed to them is questionable. Number one. Number two, none of the fuqaha, as in zero, not from the Hanafi school of jurisprudence, not from the Maliki school of jurisprudence, or the Shafi'i school, or the Hanbali school, have that opinion. All of them agree that she has to at least make up her fast. The difference of opinion amongst them is, along with the making up of the fast, does she also have to do fidya or kafara or expiate, as to feed a poor person? And it is strange. As a matter of fact, it actually lends or causes great doubt. So it has been attributed to Ibn Umar that none of the Maliki scholars would take that opinion, because the Malikiya in general, they follow Ibn Umar's opinions on a lot of things. So if this was in fact an opinion of Ibn Umar, that she didn't have to make up her fast, that all she has to do is feed poor people, then you would have found at least some of the Maliki scholars, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, taking that opinion. The fact that none of the scholars have taken that opinion is quite interesting. And so, women who are breastfeeding, women who are pregnant during the month of Ramadan, the fast is still an obligation upon them. They either do it during the month of Ramadan or they make it up after. I am not a doctor. Therefore, if a woman wants to fast when she's pregnant, she should consult her doctor, especially during these days that are very long, especially during the summer, the long summer days. But from a fiqh standpoint, she either fasts or she makes up her fast. And I hope that that's clear. All right? And the proof of that is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرَ. Whoever from amongst you is sick or traveling, then make it up at another time, at other days. And the scholars have said that the woman who is pregnant and the woman who is breastfeeding, if she cannot fast, then she is to be considered from amongst the ill. She cannot fast. And she is similar to those who are ill in that regard. Tahir? Okay. To move on, and there are a few other points related to this topic. Yeah, Allah. Because there's a lot. This is kind of detailed. But the issue of expiating, since we brought up the point, and that is, for example, those who have chronic illnesses that don't allow them to fast, they'll never be able to fast, according to the doctors. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Those people are to feed a poor person for each day that they have missed. What many brothers do, and sisters as well, and this is a huge mistake, is they just have an iftar. I'm going to sponsor an iftar at the masjid. How many people came and ate at the masjid? 100, 200? Alhamdulillah. I'm done. No, your obligation is not to feed any Muslim. Your obligation is to feed a poor Muslim. So you cannot just sponsor an iftar and think that you have fulfilled your duty of expiating for the fast of Ramadan. They have to be masakin, which maybe poor is a bad translation. They have to be, because a miskin is someone who does not have enough income to meet their needs. Yani their expenses exceed their income. That is someone who, we may not consider that person poor, but in fact, the term in this country is usually the working poor. That person may have a job, but they're not able to make ends meet, not to be able to live at a standard that they are accustomed to. Right.
That could be a lot of people, and it could be some of the people that came to that group iftar.
Right.
That group.
It could be. Our issue is not could it be. Our issue is it?
Okay.
So it's not about me taking a shot in the dark and saying, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and feed 200 people. At least, inshallah, at least 30 of them, are going to fulfill that category. No. You go to certain masjids, not a one of them. They all give us a cat. Not a one of them takes a cat.
No.
So, you can't measure it like that. And the reality is that most of us know at least a couple Muslims who fall into the category of being from amongst those who can't meet their expenses with their income. And so you don't have to do 30 different people. You can do 10 people 3 times. You can do one person 30 times. Understand? Like, what is it that you are feeding them to expiate? Yeah, you're feeding them a meal that would normally meet someone's requirements for getting full. Okay? And this thing. Not that they're full to the point that they can't worship Allah, not that kind of full, but that it's a meal, that it's a solid meal. So if you give them that, then that is sufficient for fulfilling one day, right? Or you can give a half a sa', which is like 1.5 kilos of the staple of the country that you live in. Yes. Fellowship.
How about money?
No.
No money.
No. Money, giving money away as an expiation for the day that was missed is not permissible unless you are giving the money to someone to buy food on your behalf, that you make them your agents. You're giving them the money so that they can feed a poor Muslim. So if you give somebody else $100 and you say, I want you to buy 20 of those gyro platters, like I said last night, right? I want you to buy 20 of those and give them away, and that person does that for you, then yes, you fulfill that obligation, but not just giving money to a poor person. Yeah.
What about you give it to the poor person so he was going to the store, you give it to him so he can feed himself, so he can buy his dinner?
I mean, that seems to be that would seem to be permissible in this case. If that's in fact what's going on.
What's gonna happen? Yeah.
Like, next couple. I'm just gonna try to knock these out as quick as possible, inshallah. Like, I'll boil it down to the next. Just two more things. Inshallah. One is brothers who make it difficult for their wives in Ramadan. They require that their wives make all types of special food for Ramadan, especially for the iftar. Because the iftar is not to feed a fasting Muslim. The iftar is to show off. The iftar is to show how generous I am, how great I eat, how good a cook my wife is, and what you're missing out. And this is what the iftar is about. It's not about feeding those who are fasting, which subhanAllah should be another thing that we strive for in the month of Ramadan. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever feeds a person who is fasting, and he gets a reward like the one who fasted. And so we should be trying to, because there's really no other time during the year, even if you're doing Mondays and Thursdays and things like this, and you're trying to keep up with it. There's no guarantee like the month of Ramadan that you're actually feeding people who were fasting. Right? So it's important that you do that. But that doesn't become the goal for a lot of the people who are doing the iftars. It really becomes a show, and it becomes something to hold over somebody's head because you want them to also invite you to their iftar. And so we have this, circle of iftars going on. So what happens a lot of times is that the man is inconveniencing his family to do something like this, taking her away from the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and she's already watching your kids. And so she doesn't have as much time as you have. You want to go sit in the masjid for 20 extra minutes, 30 extra minutes. It's okay for you to do that. It's not okay for her to do that. And I don't mean that from a legislative point. I'm saying from the normal way that we operate in our homes. She just can't get up and do that, but we can. And so we have to be very considerate of our wives during the month of Ramadan, that we're not taking them away from their goals that they have during Ramadan. In general, the better your wife is in terms of her piety and closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the better your children will be. Which is not necessarily the case with us. We don't have that same ability to rub off on our children the way that our wives do. We don't spend as much time with our children as our wives do in general. And so you actually should be looking to facilitate your wife's goals, helping her achieve her goals in the month of Ramadan, especially if you have children and, trying to help her, get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Under that same topic is bringing your wife to the masjid. And when you come to the masjid, that you come to the masjid together. But wallahi, one of the biggest mistakes is that you bring the little children with you. And they go crazy, and the masjid is not set up for that. Okay? If you go to a masjid that has a separate area for the kids, then that's alhamdulillah, then that's fine. If not, you have to work that out because you know having children in the masjid 3 and 4 years old, and they're screaming, and they're crying, and they're jumping around, and they're doing everything that disturbs the people who came to the masjid to pray. And if the Prophet ﷺ prohibited us from raising our voices in recitation of the Quran in the masjid so that we don't disturb the people who are praying, how about you bringing a child to the masjid who has not been trained yet? That child doesn't know how to pray. There's no other purpose for that child to be there except that you didn't want to leave them at home. But when you bring them to the masjid, they're disturbing the prayer. We have to be very cautious of that. The last thing that I'm going to mention, the last error that I'll mention is not encouraging children to fast. So many parents, look at their children as being weak, and the days are too long for them to fast. Here's the deal: if your child has reached the age of puberty, then that child is accountable in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It doesn't matter if she's 13, if she's 12. She has to stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the same way that a 60-year-old woman would have to stand in front of Allah. The same way that you have to stand in front of Allah. They are accountable from that age. And you are sinful as a parent if you do not facilitate that fast. By facilitating, what I'm talking about is encouraging them to fast, making sure that they have the meals that they need to have that are necessary for them to be able to fast. How is the child supposed to fast if they wake up for suhoor and there's not a wholesome meal for them to have? That you give them sugary drinks, for example, for suhoor. They need water. They need things that are going to help them get through the day, grains and so forth, that are going to help them get through the day of fasting. And so, as parents, it's critical that you start with your children before they get to the age of puberty. At 7, even in this weather, tell them to fast. That first day is going to be super difficult for them. They're going to get to door time and they're going to say, I can't do it anymore. Okay, fine. They're going to break it fast, no problem. But tomorrow, we promise you you're going to do at least an extra hour. I promise. Okay, like, you get some water right now and some food. And then the next day, and you get them to the point where they can do a couple days. And they feel proud. You say, look, alhamdulillah, you made it. And they'll get to the point where they're 8 and they're 9. And there's no month that they love more than the month of Ramadan. Not because they want to attain taqwa, because they like breaking their fast. The fasting person, Prophet told us, the one who fasts has 2 times of enjoyment. The time when they break their fast and the time when they stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so they love breaking the fast. That's good. That's good. Because they're not, even at 9, they're not held accountable if they miss a day or two. But you get them, now they're accustomed. They learn how to do that. And they know that they can do it. So by the time that it's an obligation for them, it's no issue. It's not an issue. So as parents, we have the obligation of facilitating them and helping them fast. And it is a huge mistake that we make to not encourage them to fast. A bigger mistake is encouraging them not to fast. You understand the difference? One is that we don't encourage them to fast. The second, which is even worse, is that we encourage them not to fast. Oh, you got football practice today? No, you can't fast today. That's where we are. Or you have to do this or you have to do that. Don't fast today. And this is on the tongue of some Muslim parents. I mean, maybe Allah, they think that their child is going to be the next, NBA star or something, and that's going to be their ticket out of the ghetto or whatever. Or the other than that. Is this, subhanAllah, but we really have to look at what you're telling your children when you do that. Because what value we're giving them is that this dunya is more important than your deen. That your sports, your team, or whatever else is more important than Islam. It's more important than your worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is more important than you drawing closer to your Lord Jalla Jalaluhu and living a life that is pleasing to the one who created you. So, those are some of the common mistakes that are made during the month of Ramadan. I'm sure there are many others that we didn't get a chance to get to, but hopefully we had a qadr kifaya. Hopefully there was enough and what was said for us to think about and to open up our minds. And before I close out the talk, inshallah ta'ala, I just want to see if we got those 4 things. If we remember the 4 areas of self-examination, what do we test ourselves in? Because it's important. This is something that you need to be doing very frequently, and especially as the month of Ramadan comes, so that we can prepare properly. That's the first thing. Obligations. What about your obligations? What about them? So you look at, are you fulfilling your obligations to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your obligations to His creation? All right. So don't just stop at salat. And when you look at salat, what are you looking at?
Khushua.
Yes. Not just when you're praying and where you're praying, how you're praying, why you're praying. Is your salat fulfilling what it's supposed to? Is it reminding you of Allah's context? So you're looking at all of those things. Do you give zakat? When's the last time you gave zakat? Do you know how to give zakat? You understand? These are obligations. Your obligations to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your parents, your relatives, your spouse, your children. You know what I'm saying? Like, next. The prohibitions. Starting with, you look at the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you start with your heart. Looking at your heart. The actions of the heart. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited us from suspicion. He's prohibited us from loving others the way that we love Him. Fearing others the way that we fear Him, from not putting our reliance upon Him. To the end of it, look at those matters of the heart, and then investigate the limbs, your hearing, your sight. To the end of it. Like, third thing, your time. Look at how you spend your time. And that requires a lot of. And the last thing.
How to better.
Sorry.
How to better.
How? Right. Okay. How to make better the things that you are doing that are either permissible or pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Going that extra mile. How can I step it up a notch? How can I make these? How can I turn my mundane acts into acts of ibadah? How can I take those things that I'm doing right now that are good? How can I make them better, or am I spending my time wisely? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Got an acronym for you.
Like,
which is option.
Okay, option. Obligations, prohibitions, time,
and improving on nawafil.
Improving on nawafil. Option. MashaAllah. MashaAllah, that's a good one.
Or changing the intentions. Or the permissible things.
Nah, that was, yeah. Like, yes. Yeah, question, hold on. Go ahead.
My question is about Niyya. How can we establish the Niyya for Ramadan?
Okay, so the question is about intention and how do we establish our intention for the month of Ramadan. The answer to that, inshallah ta'ala, is that the fasting itself requires, or the fasting itself is abstinence. So in other words, you are abstaining from food, you are abstaining from drink, you are abstaining from relations with your spouse. That means you're not doing anything. So the intention that you have is that you are abstaining from these things with the intention of the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because people can abstain from food and drink and so on and so forth without any intention whatsoever. It's just that they're abstaining. So when we talk about intention, perhaps you're talking about the next level, which is ikhlas, which is different from intention itself. Here, it means that you are doing this sincerely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're not just doing it because it is a habit, because everybody else in my family fasts during the month of Ramadan, so I'm fasting because they are fasting. No, the reward for Ramadan, the Prophet says in the Psalm of Ramadan, Iman, what he said. Whoever fasts the month of Ramadan out of faith, that is, they have true faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the fact that He obligated this fast upon us. And beyond that He obligated it as a benefit to us. Not that He gets anything out of it, but that everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prescribed for us is beneficial to us. And so you do that out of faith and out of hope in His reward subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whoever fasts the month of Ramadan with that kind of faith and seeking Allah's reward, and he will be forgiven of his previous sins. So as the month of Ramadan comes, from the very beginning, once you know that it is the month of Ramadan, your intention becomes to fast the entire month. And you don't need to renew that intention every night unless for some reason you have stopped fasting. So you traveled and you broke your fast. Now the next time you fast, you need to have the intention of fasting prior to Fajr.
For the rest of the days or for every day that's left? I broke my fast for traveling. There's 5
Okay, you
days
broke your
left.
fast and there's 5 days left of
So that
Ramadan.
means
You
that-
make the intention of fasting the rest of the month of Ramadan. Nine.
What is the meaning of if a person don't pray in Ramadan won't be accepted before Ramadan?
Oh, yeah, Allah understand. So the question is about those who don't pray, however they fast the month of Ramadan. The early scholars of Islam, including the Sahaba, and then the majority of the Tabi'een and those who came after them, are of the opinion that the person who leaves Salah in totality is outside of the fold of Islam. And therefore, nothing is accepted from them. Not fasting, not Hajj, not anything else. That they have rendered whatever deeds they may have done, they have made them void. Because the Prophet said, the contract that is between us and them is the salah, it's the prayer. Whoever leaves off the salah has disbelieved. I mean, they left the fold of the same. Now, there are other Muslims who they leave off salawat. I mean, they leave off some prayers, but they haven't left off prayer in its totality. For them, they need to strive prior to the month of Ramadan to make up what they missed of their prayers and to travel a path of Islam and to be upright and to protect their prayers. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, safeguard your prayers. Safeguard your prayers, especially the middle prayer, and Salat al-Asr, and stand to Allah with devotion. Okay? So it's important that they recognize that they have fallen short in their obligations to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that they do their best to make up those salawat. If it has been, for example, too many to make up, then they start from the time that they turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in repentance, that they don't miss another salah, and that they increase in nawafil with the hope that that will make up what has preceded. Allahu A'lam.
You didn't say too much about Sha'ban.
Everything I talked about is Sha'ban. That's what you should be doing right now. Sha'ban. Allahu A'lam. Yeah.
Could you give a little more clarity on how you would feed the masakin? Would it be, could you feed it all at once, or does that be
Okay. So in terms of those who have to feed the needy, the masakin, for those who have to feed them, there are multiple ways that can be done. So a person can come and feed 30 people all at one time, 30 poor people 30 poor Muslims all at one time, and that would be sufficient. Or he can feed 10 poor Muslims over a course of 3 days. Or he can feed them, lunch and dinner. I mean, there's different ways it can be done. There's nothing specific. The only thing that I would caution is that the opinion of some of the scholars, and it is a strong opinion, is that you cannot feed before it becomes an obligation to find. In other words, you can't come on the first day of Ramadan and say that because I have this chronic illness, I'm not going to be able to fast any day in Ramadan. On the first day, I'm going to feed 30 needy people. Many of the scholars of Islam say there's no taqdeem here. You cannot bring it before its time. So you can't feed until 10 days goes by, then you can feed for the prior 10 days. Or you missed a day, your first day of Ramadan, now you can feed somebody that night. So
Question? Yes.
Oh, you got it?
Oh,
So,
wow.
The woman, if her mens comes on during the month of Ramadan, once she's clean from it, does she have to make intention as well, like the one who's traveling?
No. So if, for example, a woman fasts for the first 10 days of Ramadan, and then her menses comes on, and now it goes off, and now she's on the 18th of Ramadan. Now she has to make intention for fasting from the 18th to the end of Ramadan. So she just, prior to that Fajr that day, she has the intention of fasting.
The question from the sister.
Right.
She said she has 2 kids under 2 years. Is it better to stay home the whole Ramadan, or she should break
Tahir, for the sisters who have young children, and the question is, question is what?
They're under 2 years old.
Right. So should she come to the
Yeah, she should stay home the entire Ramadan,
or?
or she should.
Okay. So should she stay home? She has young children, 2 years and under. Should she stay home the entire month of Ramadan, or should she come to the masjid? And again, here is where it's very important that we as husbands, or if she's your sister or whatever, that we do our best to make it easy on them. No, she should not bring her children to the masjid. And this is a problem for the sisters who come to the masjid and they just want to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there's 14 babies in the masjid, all of them crying she can't hear the imam. This is the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a place where you are coming for other than the purpose of worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you do something that harms the believers who are trying to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then perhaps you are even sinful for doing so. But there's a solution to that problem. Babysitting. Maybe she has relatives that can watch the child at night, 2 nights, 3 nights, so that she can
take
get
turns.
And a lot of times the sisters, exactly, they can take turns, because chances are she knows a sister who's a close friend of hers who's not praying at that particular time, and can watch the kids for her at that time. Right, and I mentioned that during the talk, that if you can go to a masjid that is designated area for the children, then that is another option. And the man should try to be understanding, even if that's something that maybe takes an extra 10 minutes to get to that masjid, as opposed to their local masjid, or whatever. That makes that, a part of a sacrifice that he makes, so that his wife can also, participate in the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That doesn't happen every night. And again, these are the things that you can prepare for prior to Ramadan, so that it doesn't have to be something that's so spontaneous that it totally throws off the schedule. What about a poor pregnant woman who cannot afford to work? I'll address that.
Allah preserve you and keep you well.
Ameen.
What about a person in late years, 95? Should we encourage her to fast, or should she just plan on praying?
For the elderly who have gotten beyond the age of being able to fast, and this is important for us to realize, and this is something that if necessary, you can talk to to a trustworthy doctor. But a lot of times they get to an age where it's beyond their ability to fast without harming themselves. And if you are harming yourself by fasting, then you are sinful. It is haram for you to fast. Even though that fast is considered to be valid, it is still haram for you to fast. And so that's what we're looking at here. Is this person able to fast without harming themselves? If so, then they should fast. And if it's going to harm them, then they should not fast. And if it's meaning if they're at the age where they can no longer fast, then it's considered to be like a chronic disease. And all they're going to do is feed a poor person for each day. That being said, this is also for the sisters who are, for example, their menses comes on during the last 10 nights of Ramadan, and they're just destroyed because they can't pray. Prayer is not the only thing that we can do on Laylatul Qadr. You can still feed someone who is fasting and give them reward for fasting. You can still recite the Quran. And here, and it's the opinion of the majority of the scholars, that you cannot touch the Mus'haf, okay, unless you are in a state of ritual purity. However, that doesn't mean you can't listen to a qari on YouTube, for example, and then recite after that qari. It doesn't mean that, and there's multiple ways to do that. Anyway, the point is, she can still recite the Quran. She can still make dua, and a lot of dua. And this is part of what you should be doing on Laylatul Qadr, is making a lot of dua. And it would not be longer in general than the day of Arafah, and the dua that a person makes from Dhuhr all the way until Maghrib. And so taking advantage of that, these are all things, and there are multiple things that a person can do, even if they can't pray on Laylatul Qadr, that they can do and strive toward, drawing closer to Allah and worshiping Him. All right. Brother in the back. Now, for feeding the needy people, yes. They should be Muslim, and if you don't know any needy Muslims in your locality, which is a stretch, that's a stretch. If not, then you can appoint someone in a Muslim country who knows needy people to feed needy people on your behalf, and you give them the money.
On behalf of my niece, she's breastfeeding. Now she wanna stop breastfeeding. She asked a question. Should she give formula to the baby?
Why is she gonna stop breastfeeding?
Or she wanna stop breastfeeding and stop breastfeeding.
She wants to stop breastfeeding for what reason?
She wanna stop breastfeeding. She wanna two options. She wanna stop breastfeeding and give formula to the baby so she can fast. Or she wanna fast and after.
No. But that's not recommended. It's not recommended that she stops breastfeeding so that she can fast. No. She should continue to breastfeed. And there's no doubt that even from a medical perspective that this is much better for her and for the child than to give the child formula. All right? The issue is this. Can she fast and still produce the milk? A lot of times in these longer summer days, that may prove to be quite difficult. Whereas during the winter days, it's a lot of times she can fast even every other day and she's still producing milk at a fairly decent rate. The other thing is that she can express the milk beforehand and have enough that the child has during the day and that she's not drying up in that particular day. See, the issue is this, and this is something to clarify. For a lot of women who are pregnant and those that are breastfeeding, they can't fast every day, but they can fast some days. And so some women think that because they can't fast the entire month of Ramadan, that they don't fast any of the days of Ramadan. No, maybe she can fast on a Monday, and then it becomes, then she can fast on a Friday, and then the next Tuesday, or whatever. And then she looks at the days that she has to make up. Nah, yeah, and as Shaykh Noor mentioned, that if she begins the day fasting, but it becomes to the point that it's too difficult for her to continue to fast. She thought she was going to be able to fast that day. And then she was not able to complete her fasting. She breaks her fast. There's no harm in that. And then inshallah she can make it up in later days, November and December. Now, last question.
All right, if you have an elderly person who is unable to fast but also unable to prepare the food or have the money or the ability to buy the food, can their children fulfill that obligation for them?
Right. The question is, if there's an elderly person who does not have the ability to fast due to their age, however, they also do not have the ability monetarily or even physically to feed poor people, can their children feed on their behalf? In other words, can they take on that obligation of feeding on behalf of the parent? And the answer is yes. They can give their parent the money that is necessary for the preparation of that food for the 30 days. Or they can buy it on their behalf. Like they can buy food out there. But that being said, it is not an obligation on them, nor is it an obligation on that particular person. That obligation is separate. Is excused. They are excused because they were not able to do this or not able to do that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not burden the soul beyond its capability. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad.